What's going on, you guys? I hope each and every one of you are having an amazing day. Today we're going to be talking to you about the much requested topic, angles. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to be talking about angles next week because the importance of angles is unbelievable. It's ridiculous to think about people not quite understanding the difference between the slightest difference in angle, regardless of if it's how you're holding the weight or if it's how the bench is positioned, all the differences that come into play. But that's going to be next week. This week, we're going to be talking about, what are we going to be talking about? Primary versus secondary muscle groups. So when you're doing a movement, you're going to be aiming to target one muscle group. Now, a lot of movements incorporate other movements. Nope, a lot of movements incorporate different muscle groups. So if you're, for example, targeting chest, when you're doing your bench press, you're going to be coming up, which targets your triceps, targets a little bit of your shoulders, and your core is always going to be there stabilizing you. So what you want to do, what your goal is to try and minimize the amount of use that the secondary muscles are having in the movement. You want to try and concentrate on bringing the contraction to the muscle that you're trying to target. In this case, it would be chest, because there's nothing worse than getting to the end of your chest workout and realizing that you have more of a shoulder pump than you do a chest pump. With that being said, there are movements that unfortunately you cannot take the secondary muscle groups out of it. This is where understanding the difference between compound and isolation come into play. When you're doing a compound movement, you're going to be targeting a couple different muscle groups at the same time. There's always going to be one that you're mainly targeting, mainly focusing on, but it's inevitable. There's always going to be the secondary muscle groups coming into play. So like I said, we're going to hop into the definition of what a primary muscle group is versus a secondary muscle group. Just in case that's the best way to learn for you, here it is. Primary muscles are what control the movement you are performing. Simply put, as they say, it's the muscle intended and targeted during said exercise. Secondary muscles are what assist the primary muscles to complete an exercise. So now it goes on to say something about quads and core and whatever. But like I said, the main importance is that you're going to be focusing one muscle group. If it takes secondary muscle groups to come into play, they're going to be the muscle groups that you're trying to minimize the use of these muscles and trying to pull the contraction to that primary muscle group. So again, there's nothing good or bad about secondary or primary. For example, when you're doing an isolation movement, you shouldn't have secondary muscle groups coming into play. So if I'm doing rope pull downs, I'm going to be targeting triceps. Your core is something that's always going to be activating. You have to have a strong core. If your core isn't built up, you're going to feel it, and it's going to try to jump in all the time to override your primary muscle group. And you don't want that. So you want to build up your body nice and equally, so that way, when you're targeting primary, you can really pull that contraction. And that's where the mind to muscle connection really comes into play. That'll be a topic for another day. But essentially, your mind to muscle connection is when you focus on the muscle that you're trying to activate. So now if I'm concentrating on doing, for example, lat pull downs. So as I come down, some people will just go through the movement. But what you want to do is focus your mind to contract your traps, not your traps, your lats. These are lats, Aaron, by the way. But as you come down, instead of just going through the movement, using your biceps, a little bit of shoulders, some of your back, you're gonna lock out your latissimus dorsi. Then from there, as you come down, you're squeezing in your lats, contracting and coming back up. But you're never losing the contraction. You're not, as you come up, you're not just going limp. You're still holding the contraction within the lat and you're going back up. Nice and slow, right back into it, squeeze, and back up. In this position, it's still contracted. If you could feel, I would let you feel, but you can't. So you're just gonna have to take my word for it. And it's super important. It's something that is really crucial. If you don't know, you don't know. So it's not your fault. But once you've been informed and once you've been educated, then it's at that point that you could start making these applications. So to sum it all up, you have your primary and your secondary muscle groups. These are very important to understand. So many times I've been in a gym where I see somebody doing something that they think is targeting, for example, their chest or their shoulders, but it's not. They're doing something that's targeting triceps or targeting a completely different muscle group, or because they're not strong in a certain area, there's other muscle groups that are coming into play. And it's super important for you to understand that there are muscle groups that are primary and there are muscle groups that are going to come in secondarily just to help out, just to assist in the movement. So with all that being said, I really hope that you guys learned something. If you didn't know what primary and secondary muscle groups were, now you do. Like I said, next week we're going to be talking about angles. Because if you've been a client of mine, or if we've ever worked together, if we've ever trained together, you probably heard me say that working out should be renamed angles. Plain and simple. Because working out is all about angles. You can make the slightest adjustment in angles that are gonna cause for a complete different contraction. But I'm not gonna get too much into it. We're gonna save this one for next week. But with all that being said, Jenna and I went and got our initials tattooed on each other's fingers because, like a tattoo, marriage is for life. And to those people that say, ooh, that's risky, no one questions a Muslim when they don't eat pork. How does that relate? Jenna and I were actually talking about this the other day. When somebody doesn't eat pork because of religious reasons and they choose to follow it, nobody questions it because they're seen as somebody who's following their faith and they're very strong in their faith. But because of the high numbers of Christians that decide to get divorced, at that point there, people see divorce as something that can just happen. Based on what Jenna and I believe, there is nothing that can happen. We're just going to continuously change and grow to become the people that God intended us to be for each other. It's plain and simple. Tattoos are for life, so is marriage. No, that wasn't supposed to happen. It's pretty sweet, eh? But I can't wear my ring over it, so I've chosen to wear it right here. Like I said, I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you stay blessed, motivated, and go get your dreams, guys.